Welcome to strings. Some documents might refer to it as a sequence of characters, others as objects, and Java strings are basically objects, as you'll see in a few. And we will also talk about the java.lang.String class, whose methods we can use to interact with our string objects. And we'll look at a few examples. For example, starting with the creating strings class. So the creating strings class is a simple way to just see how we would the most common way we would create strings such as this. For example, hello world, which is a string literal, and it has been assigned to this string variable, and when you print it, of course, you'll see hello world. Then like any other objects, you can work with a string object, like in this example here. So for example, if you have your character arrays of H, your E, all the way up to what would spell hello with a full stop at the end, you can create your string object using the new keyword as you would when you're normally creating an object, as we learned in the introduction course, introduction section of the course. Then if you print this, you would of course see hello. So from the character we have a new string object. So these are two ways of doing it, but we'll look at more examples, and at this point you'll start to see why one would be preferred over the other, at least up to the Java 8 level. So this is what would happen. So what happens in the background is the Java compiler will be running, and once it meets a string literal such as hello world, like demonstrated here, once it meets a string literal, it will create a string object in the background such as this, and then it will assign that string literal value to the object. So just to make this clear, let me remove this double quotation because it will be a plain value without the double quotation mark that would make it a string literal. So this is what will happen. It will assign the string literal value to the object, and in that case, anytime there is this string greeting variable with the literal hello world, then it will be referencing this object with hello world. So that is what happens in the background. But what more do we need to learn about strings up to this level? We need to learn about the immutability of a string. Once a string object is created, then it cannot be changed. And we'll also look at the methods, some of the methods that you can use to interact with strings, such as the length method to fetch the length of the string, the get characters method. We'll see how we can use that to make life easier when working with iterating through a character or characters in a string. Then we'll also look at the format method. Although we looked at the format method earlier, this one returns a string object compared to the other one that returns a print stream. So let's go and check this out using code example. So I'll move right into the string pool, and in the string pool I'll use this to show you why sometimes it will be preferred to just work with string literals. For example, there's a string literal Java, and I have the value x. So in the background, the compiler is gonna take it and it's gonna create an object and assign that value to that object. So if I work with the string y, it will then reference the same object, and you can compare that at this point. If I were to create a new object altogether without going through the string literal, then and then make a comparison, then we'll look at what that means. So the best way to check this out real quick, despite all the errors you're seeing, because bad coding practice and everything, but we want to prove a point here. So if I want to check if they're on the same object in the memory, the best way to do that is to work with the double equal sign. So if I was to run this, I expect to see true because the x and the y will be referencing one object in memory from the string pool. If I was to compare this, then it will give me false because in this z, I created a new object altogether in this line, so it will be a different object in memory. And however, if I was to convert this or to force it to work with the pool that was created. So you call it a string constant pool or a string int on pool. If I was to force this to work with the Java pool from the string literals, then it will result into true. So let's run this and check that out. So I'm expecting to see true, false, and true. There you go. So this is true indeed, this is false, different objects in memory, and this is true. So perhaps the reason why you would prefer to work with string literals is because it makes use of the pool, saves memory, and so on and so forth. But there are other classes that we'll look at in the near future to talk some more about how we can work with strings efficiently. Okay, so moving forward to another demonstration here. So we have a demonstration here with a palindrome. Palindrome is a word that results to the same thing backwards and forwards. So dot so I was told, if I was to reverse this, I would still get dot so I was told. Same thing. So that's the palindrome here. Now there's something you want to do with this palindrome, and what you want to do in this demonstration is to see how we can work with an inefficient way of reversing the palindrome and then a more efficient way of reversing the palindrome. And in this case, the object that we'll work with is the getChars. So the method rather that we'll work with from the string class is the getChars method. So let's look at this. We have this palindrome here. We have int len here, which is storing the length of the palindrome. So I printed it just so we know, but the length of the palindrome is stored anyway. So this, I expect this to see, to give back to us the length. If I remember correctly, that was 17. Then you create a new character array here, another one here. So this is where we'll store the iteration. Then this is where we'll store the reversal of the characters. So we work with the for loop, which is an inefficient way to do it, but we'll look at an efficient way to do it after. So we are starting from the iterating. We worked with for loops before. Please have a reference to the previous sessions. But for now, we are working with the assumption that you already know what a for loop is. So we're starting from 0 iteration all the way up to the what's less than the length. So it should be up to 16 inclusive. Given that the length last I checked was 17, if I remember correctly, we'll have a look at that. Then you get to increment it. So we're iterating it through that and saving it, saving the palindrome characters at every index in this character array, temp character array, iteratively. Then after that, we move on to reverse. So what is gonna happen is we're gonna take the other character that was created, the other character array that was created, and we work with it iteratively, starting with the temp character array, but from the farthest digit. So the length, which is 17 minus 1, so it starts from 16. An index of 16 is the highest index we can have there. Then you subtract the current character, the current index, which is 0. So it starts at 16 all the way to 15 up to when it gets to a 0. And then it will have been reversed. And then we can print it. So this will be a reversed palindrome. So you have your string here, the new object created, we pass in the character array with the latest reversal, then we print the reversed palindrome. So if I run this, I should see it work as expected to give me a reversed palindrome, and there we go. We have the palindrome length is 17, and then eventually it's reversed. Despite of the character, despite of the spacing, it's reversed. Dot so I was told. Reverse of this. Okay, now that's the inefficient way of doing it. The more efficient way of doing it is working with this method, palindrome getChars. So I'm just gonna comment remove the comments from that and comment this loop here. So with getChars, what it expects, or rather from the source, this is how it looks like. It expects you to pass in the source int of the index. So where should it start from? So if you want to reverse from 0, then you'll pass in a 0. Then we have this where do you want it to stop at? So we're gonna stop at 17. This is where you're passing in len. Remember is 17, as you're seeing here. And then next, it expects you to pass in the character array of the destination. So we're working with the destination temp character array, this one, and just as you would when you're iterating at this point. And then where you want the destination to start from, so it's gonna start from 0, given that the character array length is 17, so it still start also from index 0, and that will store those the string iteratively into this temp character array, into this temp character array. So this is the simplest way of doing it, and even if you get a chance to play around with it, if you go to this string class here, scrolling down, there is a method called getChars, this one, and that is the one that we are using. So it's meant to copy from a string into a destination character array. Better way of doing it other than working with the for loop. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think that's a better way of doing it. I should still get the same results. There you go. So play around with that, figure out how you can tweak it if needed, and so on. Okay, moving on. This is not required. I hence moved it to a different location, so I'll just change this. So another useful method is the concat method, although the best way or the most common way you'll see it done is just by working with this concatenation plus sign. So if I look at this string 1 here, which is string literal hello, and then the string 2 here, which is a string literal of world, if I was to concatenate them, then I'll get hello world. But of course, another way to do it is just to work with the plus sign, same result. So for example, even if I do string 1, then the concatenation sign, then string 2, it will still give me hello world, same difference. So you'll see, you can try that out. And then if I proceed on, there are other things that you can do. You can concatenate your string literals directly, as you're seeing here. There, my name is, then you concatenate with, and then you can store it in a string rample. However, it can even stand on its own like this. I don't need to store it in rample. I can even pass it in the s out directly, but I wanted to also show you that string can also store concatenated string literals such as this. But this, of course, the most common way. So here I'll get my name is, then I'll concatenate rample, so I'll get my name is rample, then I can print it as I've said. Here concatenation is still hello world, as it was done on this at the beginning, at that point. Then so there's another rule in Java. If you want to work with multiple lines, you have to work with the concatenation. Otherwise, multiple lines, it's not allowed. As you're seeing here, even if I was to just make it this whole string, there's no way of it knowing what that is. So if you're working with multiple lines, then you have no option but to break it up, then add a concatenator, and then you print it. So I'll just run it to make sure everything is in order, but as it is, everybody knows what it should bring. It's hello world, yeah, from this one, hello world, from this other is out here, my name is rample from here, hello world from here, then Java spanning multiple lines with concatenation. Very good. Okay, now moving on to concatenation, but in this case we're concatenating with also some objects. So for example, we have age, which is just an integer, so it's a mixed concatenation. We have double here, we have active here, but then we also have an object reference, or I would say a call to a constructor of class person. So if you have this kind of concatenation, what will happen is this reference here will go and fetch what's available from the toString method of that, in this case it's a class, so of that class, like we are seeing here, class person does have an overridden toString method, and when it's overridden, you're telling it that it should fetch the person name and age and concatenate that there. So we expect to see that is what will happen, and then after that I'll just remove the overridden, and then you'll see what it will return. It should be a hash, some hash code value, but let's see. If I run this, I will get the concatenation, which is string here hello world age, then age 25, then salary here, then active 2, so it's set here, then the person gives me the person name and the age as per the toString method that is passed here. So I have person name, then it's appending or concatenating it with the name and the age that will be passed on when you're making a call to the constructor of that class. As you're seeing here, Alice and 30 is what was passed. So that is what I would get if I have overridden the toString method. What happens if it's not overridden? Then it will work with the toString method from the parent class. So if I run this, what will I get? This one will get the hash code reference also from that class you're seeing here. So if you want to, this is also a point where we are getting to see how toString method is very useful. Overriding the toString method is useful, so take note of that. And finally, to the printf and format methods, we've already known about them from a previous session in the PrintStream class, but in this case we want to compare it and why you would prefer to work with format or this option here over working with printf. So if I work with printf standalone like this without converting it to string, I cannot assign it to a string like this, string variable. So I'll have to convert it to a string method, to convert it to a string using toString method, so I can assign it to a string. However, I cannot reuse it. It's still not reusable. I'll demonstrate that if I make a call to this string, I can't reuse it. It will return some print stream with some hash code there. So you'll see that, but I can work with this. It's allowed. Although compared to the format method, it still needs me to make a call to the formatted method before I pass in all the formats there. Then it will be multiple line. Doesn't look very pretty to me. So if in the context of the string discussing strings, then I'd advise that you work with this format method. So you make a call to it from the string class, then you pass in your string with concatenations and formats here. Then you pass in the values that will be formatted as you've done before, then you print that. So this should give me one line, this should give me multiple lines, this will give me something that cannot be deciphered, and this will give me from this system out one line. But it will once you move to this part, you'll see that it cannot reuse, it is not reusable. So let's see this. Here we go, scrolling to the top. One line cannot be understood, multiple lines, one line. That's that. So play around with that. I'll also include this in the GitHub link in the description. Within our string class, we have the format method. Scroll all the way back and navigate to the format method here. And to the format method at this point, I'll work with this. Please note that it's of type string, so it's gonna expect a return of string objects. And if I navigate to it, then you see that it's a public static method that's expecting string. That's whose return type, sorry, is a string. And here we go. Yeah, but if you look at the PrintStream one, then it's of return type is PrintStream. So they're different like that. The return type is what varies. So, and with that, we ended our string method, at least at this level. More to come. Stay tuned. See you in the next one.